After over a year, I am finally done with my Super Trip figure. This was created from a How to Train Your Dragons toy. It's not Toothless, it's one of Toothless's descendants, I can't remember the name. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. It was a very difficult project with some 3D scanning and a lot of printer failure issues. But after all of it was done, I'm actually pretty happy with it. You may remember I made a regular masked trip a while back, and this is kind of a continuation of that. Maybe someday I'll do maskless trip. Let me know in the comments if you would like that. So one thing you might notice is this is all golds and coppers, kind of different from the original yellows of the figure. And that's one of the reasons it took me so long to finish this, because I was never inspired because I didn't really like the yellows of the original, and trying to match that in paint just really wasn't working out. So once I decided to go with the golds and coppers, even though they were less accurate, I really fell in love with this figure. I'm super happy to have it in my collection. So without further ado, here is the making of Super Trip. I started with a How to Train Your Dragons toy. This was suggested by SparkleWolf404. I started with some yellow spray paint, but it looked really awful. So I got rid of that. As I was going through footage, I realized this was over a year ago. This was when I was doing Halloween stuff, and those were some fun projects. Go check those out if you haven't seen it yet. I got what I thought was a better yellow that would be a good base for the figure, and I really hated that one too. If you've seen some of the other videos where I 3D scan, you'll know that black doesn't show up well on this really bad scanner, so it was helpful that it had a yellow coat before it. I ended up using the existing 3D model from the game and scaled it up to kind of match the 3D scan that I have gotten. It took a lot of cleanup work. If you've ever watched me do this on stream, you know it's kind of boring. I had to change some of the proportions too, just to make it fit better on the figure without having to fully scale everything up. But it's proportion differences that I don't think anybody would notice. Eyes and eyelids generally are pretty bad because in the game they just can get away with the front piece of it and have these thin geometries, but I have to go in and extrude everything out, and sometimes they have crazy non-manifold edges. It becomes a mess. And it was quite a puzzle trying to get these neck armor pieces to fit, because there's a seat on the back of the dragon. So what I ended up doing was removing a lot of the pieces from the 3D scan in ZBrush, and then using that to cut it out properly. You can see the negative shape of the ZBrush edited scan underneath the head there. I split it into two pieces so it can kind of clamshell around, and then I would be able to fit that on the figure better. This was interesting too because the wings needed to still function, so I had to create a slot for them to kind of get in there between the armor plates. I cut out the tail just like I did the other pieces, and then I ended up making kind of a complex cutout shape to be able to split that into two as well, to be able to clamshell it just the same way as I did with the other pieces. So this was back when I first got my Bamboo printer, and it's supposed to work well out of the box. And you can see in my more recent projects, I have printed tons of really big things that worked out well, but it did not work out of the box. It took a lot of work on my part to start to get quality. And this is when I was first dealing with those quality issues. But after a lot of tweaking, I started getting good enough prints out of it. I ended up going with a resin head, but this one was still plenty good at this quality. So then I had to actually cut off the pieces of the toy, just like I did with the 3D scan in ZBrush. This was never the right yellow, and I always intended to paint over it, but using this yellow at least as a base, so it was kind of in the ballpark. During this time, I really hated how it looked, and it was so hard to find motivation to work on this project at the time. I also tried doing individual armor pieces that I could slide on the tail instead of the clamshell, but ultimately this worked much, much better. There were a lot of gaps to fill though. I was so happy though that the mechanism still worked. That was really cool. Here's the resin one that I was talking about. I didn't want to print everything in resin, but I wanted to have just this kind of hero front headpiece to be a little bit better detail. But this one was a lot harder to stick onto the head. It didn't have the exact fit like the FDM print had. And after a lot of sanding and dremeling, including dremeling the inside to make it fit better, I started to have pieces that were fitting on really smoothly. I used some super glue to attach it permanently. And I even used some more of that super glue to start to fill in the edges. For some reason that I don't remember, I just ended up using hot glue for the tail, and that worked fine enough. Then I used some super glue to finish that off. And here I am using a paper towel to get rid of the excess and hope that it just kind of fills the holes. But then I used green stuff to really get all into the details and really make it extra smooth. This is kind of a two-part, I don't know if you'd call it an epoxy. I think it is, but I could be wrong. You can kind of use it to model things. It's almost like a clay-like material once it's all put together. And I started filling this in. I didn't put this in the original 3D print, and then I felt it was missing something. So I just ended up doing that in green stuff, and then sanded it down really well to just get the form and smoothness that I wanted. And to fit on the foot pieces, I had to clip off some of the toes. So my compressor broke right when I started this project. Yeah, just put it in. My dad and I went to Harbor Freight to get a new one. And give a thumbs up. We also looked at welders for a future project. Unfortunately, it was way too loud to use in the house. Dang. So what I ended up doing was taking it outside, letting it fill up, and then using the airbrush for a good 20 minutes or so before I needed to take it back outside and redo it. I ended up just starting over and giving it a base coat of primer, but the previous spray paint had left a ton of little dots on it. It was so messy. I had to sand all that down and then re-primer it. Finally, this is when I decided, I don't care if it's not completely accurate. I want to make this a color that I like. So I just went with a gold and copper style, and I'm super happy that I did.
So this is more of a gold than a yellow, but I really just didn't like that yellow very much of the official character, and I put this off for so long because I first of all was having troubles getting those right yellows, and I just don't like it. I think I will like it better as gold with different shades of copper and stuff. So for mine, this is where I'm going to go with it instead of really trying to match those colors.
I think it looks really cool this way. Poppy does too. She couldn't stop admiring it. So for the coppers, I had a lot of choices, and because it was spray paint, the acrylic paint did not go on it very well. I had to do a lot of coats to get it looking right. But when I did get it, I really liked it. Then came the next problem. The masking tape that I was using pulled all of the paint off. The wings went back to being black. So I painted them white, and off screen I actually did a masking and painting of more white spray paint to really get it solid. This is kind of bad quality, but this is what I did on the stream as I went through and I painted gold on the wings after they had been spray painted white, and I finished off the face with some black. I use this black pen instead of paint, and it's pretty good. I had some troubles getting into the edges of the eyelashes, where a paintbrush might have done a little bit of a better job, but I managed to finish off the whole face by using just this pen. On that same stream, I was working on another fun project, Doom Morph. This is another one I've been putting off for a long time. And here is the final result. I'm actually super happy with it. This went from something that I thought was interesting but wouldn't be that excited for as far as displaying it, to something I really do care about. I think it's one of those artistic things where you just have to make a choice and you'll enjoy it all the better for it. And I'm super glad it still works with the functions that it originally had. So I hope you enjoyed watching this. Thank you for watching it, and stay tuned for more. Thanks to those who watched the stream. SparkleWolf404, who came up with the original idea for this. The Red Shoed Sonic, YBZ, Votable Globe, Alex the Pirate Doggo, Yarn Yoshi World, Movie Sonic You're Too Slow, Stop Motion YouTube, SSH, Chase, Highwell Plays, Pro Tyler Adventures, Shade, JL and CC, Lindy Van Wink, Pichu Sonic, Misha, Jackson the OC, Daisy Garcia, High Speed Chase 4LE, Hoovaloo, Cool Kid 8, Cindy Perez, Malamations, Derek Guerva, Joyride Customs, Crescent Blue Zero, Luke Barclay, Wake Angel 2001, Pink GameCube, Alex Without Knife, TT, Fire the Hedge Boy, Just Simply Gavin, Machine, and Olap Penguin. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for watching.